All right, boys and girls. Today we're going to have a pretty interesting story to tell because recently I hopped on an airplane, I flew up north, I got off that airplane, and then I went to a place to do some airplane stuff, some work-related airplane stuff, but it just so happens that we did some other channel-related stuff along the way. And at this point, I really just want to say that there's only one person that subscribed to this channel that knew beforehand where I was going. Hey Brett, how you doing? All right, let's see how this goes. Where am I? I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids, Michigan. This is not Savannah, as beautiful as it is. We are on a work trip. And what that means is we're doing airplane stuff because my life is airplane stuff. My work is airplane stuff. And it's brought us here. We are hanging out in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This is a place that I've never been to. I have no idea what happens here. I have no idea what you all do for most of the year, but I've heard the weather is typically pretty nice. And that's pretty true right now.
Tornado warning in the downtown Grand Rapids area. Please take immediate cover in the nearest stairwell and proceed to the basement level immediately. All hotel associates, please move to your department's secondary cover location immediately. Thank you.
Well, we are currently in my hotel room. I've got some work to do, like work, like I have a job, because this deployment out here to Grand Rapids, Michigan comes with some responsibilities of my actual job. We took an airplane from Savannah, flew it up here, took about 1 hour and 45 minutes, which is pretty fast. And so I'm connecting some dots here in your mind without saying exactly what I'm doing and how I got here. But anyways, that's not what today is about. What we're gonna do later this afternoon is something that I haven't done on this channel yet, and I'm sure it's gonna happen a lot more as time goes along. We are going to meet up with a subscriber. We're gonna meet up with someone who's actually been pretty influential on the channel, even if he doesn't think so. And that guy is James. He's gonna pop on over, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna talk about airplanes, talk about aviating, and just motivate each other to keep going along the path. James is this close to finishing his private pilot's license in his own airplane. And it's one of those discussions where the last 5% of the work takes like 80% of the time. And I really think that's where James is at right now. And we're gonna support James, we're gonna talk with James, we're gonna excite James to get over the hump, because it's a place that a lot of you are gonna end up in your training as well. Instrument rating or commercial check ride, or maybe even just crossing that hurdle of buying an airplane. So let's see what we can do with this conversation. And let's see if we enjoy Grand Rapids, Michigan. Are these the rapids of Grand Rapids? Because if they were, it would totally make sense. Although not so grand. I don't know. So I tried to go down there, but the boardwalk is closed for renovations. Yeah, that's okay. Rapids. Grand Rapids. Nice. Yep. Those might be rapids right there. Grand Rapids. All right, let's go meet James. We found him. We found James. There he is. There he is. We're getting food, we're talking airplanes, but you're not invited to the conversation. I'll catch you guys later. Well, right about now, you might be asking yourself, wait a minute, is that a pony? Yes, yes, that was a pony. So now we have an answer to what people do in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Here we go. This is what we do when we're not talking about airplanes. We drink enough coffee to keep us awake so we can then talk about airplanes.
Pretty much.
Thanks for hanging out, my man. This is great.
Pleasure. That's pretty good.
All right, if you're new to the channel, there's a little bit of history here. Way back in the beginning of this channel, which was probably only about 6 months ago, I started telling people, hey, you should buy an airplane, and here are some of the steps that you can take to buy an airplane. And one of my subscribers, early subscribers, reached out and he said, hey, I would love to talk to you about this topic. Well, one thing led to another, and eventually James bought an airplane. James went out, spent his own money, took out his own loan, and went out, bought a Piper Cherokee that he's training in right now. This airplane's well equipped. It's got a GTN 650, it's got a Garmin G3X, it's got a GFC 500 autopilot. It's very nicely equipped. And so that airplane's going to take James from a student pilot through private pilot, instrument rating, commercial rating, and then we're gonna have to figure out how to get him a multi-engine airplane to get his multi-rating and more multi-time. But we sat down and talked airplanes. The only thing that could have made it any better was sitting in a hangar in front of one of our airplanes, which we didn't get the chance to. But, you know, this place that we were at had great food, excellent beverages. Won't tell you what was in the glass because YouTube might demonetize me. But then eventually we went off, sat down, had a coffee, just talked about life, just talked about our experiences. I think one of my favorite parts of that conversation was how much two strangers had in common. Not just the airplane thing, but our upbringing, the story of our families. Both of our significant others are from the West Coast, LA. Who would have thought, right? And again, we're not related. You might think so just by looking at us, but we are absolutely not. All right, moving on. We talked about some of the training that James is going through right now, especially things like perfecting his steep turns, S-turns, short and soft field landings, the things that you're going to have to do on your private pilot check ride anyway. It's nothing super special, but these are the things that have to be practiced over and over again so you get the technique down. Everyone does it slightly differently, and that's okay. You've just got to find the flavor that suits you. One of the things that caught my attention during our talk was the idea of the short field landing, right? And you're flying in a Piper Cherokee. There's hardly a field that is charted in the United States that a Piper Cherokee could not operate into and out of. So max performing a Piper Cherokee isn't something that you're going to hear people talking about a whole lot. But you still want to understand the principle behind the max performance landing, the short field landing and takeoff of that airplane. There might be a strip where, it's hot and high altitude, and your calculations show that clearing that 50-foot obstacle at the end of the runway is going to be really close. So you really want to pay attention to those things. But CFIs teach it completely differently. You're either going to have a CFI that teaches you to hold an altitude all the way in and then chop the power to drop the airplane down, or hold some sort of a glide slope all the way down to landing. That is technique. That is individually based. It's how the individual feels comfortable operating that airplane. And so there's no right or wrong way. But it really got me thinking that we should all go out there and do more practice to try to hone in on those techniques that are really important. When I say really important, I'm going to ask you a question. When was the last time you had to fly a turn around a point? You just had to hold around a point on the ground. I'm not talking about holds. I'm not talking about instrument flying here. I'm talking about pick a point on the ground and fly a perfect circle around it. Maybe if you're doing search and rescue, that would come in really handy, but that's not really, typical flying behavior for the kind of flying that you do after your private pilot license. When was the last time that you were criticized for not performing a proper S-turn? Again, it doesn't really happen that often. How about holding plus or minus 50 feet or 100 feet on a steep turn? When was the last time you did that in your normal flying? If you're not a student pilot, that is. So just the discussions that I'm having with this student pilot, awesome guy, James, it made me think, I believe we're focusing on some of the wrong things when it comes to flight training and when it comes to creating the next set of pilots who are going to have to keep these 60-year-old airplanes flying. One of the things that I train for, or at least I try to train for, I remind myself, is that I have one engine. And that one engine, even though it's a super reliable engine, the Continental IO470N is known to be incredibly reliable, there's still that chance that something's going to go wrong, right? You can hit a bird, I can unport fuel, some maintenance slippage might happen. It could all happen. We've got to think about these things. And so the S-turn and the steep turn and the turn around the point doesn't necessarily prepare me for the things that are going to keep me safe, or the things that are going to keep my passengers and the people on the ground safe. It's practicing those maneuvers that you can or should expect to encounter in your normal day-to-day flying that I think is really, really important. Think about engine out. Think about reductions of thrust. Think about unstable approaches. Think about, if you're flying a pressurized cabin, loss of pressurization, or even carbon monoxide poisoning and signs of hypoxia. Those are the things that I think we've got to spend a little bit more time focusing on. At the same time, developing techniques to do other things, yes, but honing in specifically on how tightly you can fly that turn around a point, I think is we're missing the forest for the trees. I think that's the saying, right? But I want to thank James for his time. Really, really great conversations, and I'm really envious at his airplane and its panel because he got a fantastic deal on that airplane, and the instrument panel is set up very, very nicely. If any of your stuff goes missing, you know who took it. Just give me a call. I might just give it back. All right, that's going to wrap things up for this episode, this video. I've got more things I need to do here in Grand Rapids, so I'll try to get clips of those things and maybe stitch it together in a different video, but I've got to go to work here in a little bit to fulfill the mission that I'm actually here to do, and maybe I'll be able to tie some of that mission in another video. But until then, remember where you came from. Remember who made you who you are today. And remember that you are a fantastic person. Regardless of what your significant other says, you are a fantastic person. Pat yourself on the back, say something nice to a stranger, and we'll catch you next time. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This could be your closing shot. You are beautiful.
Exactly. See, James gets it. He gets the assignment, right? Like, yeah.